Okay, I'm here. Let's do it. We are on my weekly podcast. First of all, let's give us kudos for Anna for continuing to do her podcast every week for the last few months. This is actually a part of the journey that I see where the changes are being made. And today I want to talk a little bit about the correlation between the grief process and the spiritual awakening process and moving through both of them together to get to this. I'm going to use the word completeness. I don't know if that's the correct word to use. We might find a better word as we talk, but part of that completeness is getting to a space where I am no longer erratic and all over the place like I was over sort of the last 12 to 24 months in the direction I was going with the things I wanted to do. And kudos to me, big tick, pat on the back, well done. Look at you following through. It's something that is funny that I'm congratulating myself for following through on something for longer than a short period of time, especially when I was someone who can very easily create a plan, follow the plan, do all the steps, and stick to it for such a long time. As I sort of move through my healing and spirituality journey, and then with the grief, it has been a bit of a dog's breakfast where I've been all over the place. But that's part of my new norm. And the being all over the place is now what giving me the order, if you will. And sometimes when I get information or things I want to write down or things that I want to reflect on, often throughout the day I actually write things on my desk. And there is one thing that I wrote as we speak of this that just caught my eye. It was chaos in order. And that is what is allowing me to be more of myself, is being able to work in a way that feels good for me and that is fun for me, that works the way with how my thoughts are working right now, and gives me the space and the allowance to follow the creative and intuitive nudges as they come along. And, you know, even with the name of this podcast, the disruptive frequency is exactly that. Even though the intention may have been a little bit different when I first created it, it's now I can sort of really feel into it and understand more of what it actually means and how it's actually working for me. And I have to say, it's freaking awesome. Is it everybody's natural state? I don't know. Only you can answer that question. And even now with my consistent learnings and understandings and knowings, I do bring on new awarenesses that really solidify the idea that none of us have the answers. We are all here just sharing our own perspective in the hope to inspire other people to continue on their own journey and find their own answers. So after all that kerfuffle there at the beginning, let's get on with today's chat. So the way that this sort of topic has come out is in the process of writing my book. So I've been writing a book for the last few months with the intention of writing a book. I've always had the idea about it. It's always been on the list, if you will, using air quotations. I did create a book a few years ago. It was more of I'm pretty sure there's a more professional word, but it was more of a doing book. It was more of a, here's some information, now go do this stuff. And it's funny, the other day I actually went back and reread it. Apart from the appalling amount of grammatical errors and spelling mistakes and really bad formatting, it's not a bad book. I'm actually surprised because that book And I didn't even realize this till I started doing this actual process of writing a book, because with the book that I'm doing now, I'm really trying to make sure that I do it as well as I can, because this is going to be a story of, I'll talk more about what it's going to be about, but the process of it, I wanted it to make it right. So I started, learning some information about writing a book, because technically I have zero understanding. Which is funny, when I went back to my old book, I realized, oh my goodness, I did that without not Googling one thing. I did not find out, how do you write a book? What's the difference between fiction and non-fiction? What type of non-fiction books do you need? What kind of covers do you need? How do you set up this? How do you format a page? What font? None of that. I think the only thing I looked up was getting the dimensions to create the pages for the book so I could upload it. And it just amazes me how I was able to create that without any back end information, because I have been someone who has liked to get a lot of information from other people and the perspective that they've been through, getting to their own, like with this, with completed books and things like that. So I can use their experience to help me sort of guide myself through the process instead of just going blind. Because once you start learning what goes into writing a book, like I did not know there were different styles, different genres, the way words are formed. I'm sure we learned some of that stuff in English at school, but I'm not going to remember that. But there's a lot to it. And obviously, I'm not one who is swayed by, oh, you have to do it like this and do it like that. I'm really just trying to get the general gist to give me what I need. It's like a little, not a kick up the bum, but more of a little voltage shock to help me on my way, because I do know and do believe that we do have everything we need to create whatever we want. And if gaining information from outside sources in order for us to facilitate our next moves, that's still part of our own genius, our own knowledge bank that we are creating to help us bring something to fruition with our own sort of flavor. So it's not a, oh my goodness, this guy says that you need to write it like this and you need to put it like that and you got to do it like that and then you got to do this. But then this guy's doing this and doing that. And it's just like with everything that I have learned, it's everyone has their own point of view. So I like to gather a couple of people's point of view, and then I sort of, throw it in the washing machine of my mind and go, okay, what feels good? How do I think I want to do this? And it has been a bit of going to and fro with the direction, the theme, the outcome, the way I was going to write it, what I wanted to talk about, because if anyone knows me, they know I can really expand things into such a sense where it's like, it's too much to try to do everything at once. So I'm really trying to pull it back into what is the story, what do you want to share with people, what do you want to get readers to feel. And the essence of it obviously is my journey. And it's funny, I wanted to do a book before even the last sort of 12 to 18 months happened, which is crazy because I did have enough life story prior to my last bits of life experience that I could have written a story based on that alone. And who knows, there could be more books in this manner. And the book, its general idea is about the link between the grief process and, I'm going to use the term awakening process because, for lack of a better word, I think that's really going to give you the basis or the idea of exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you who already know me, you probably will know the story. If you don't, I'll just give you a quick little background. So back in 2020, I started aggressively on trying to manifest, literally manifest a new life. I wasn't happy where I was. There were things going on that weren't fun, and I really wanted to try and make a difference, to really try and find out how to become a better person, how to not be cranky and angry and hate my life and do things that weren't fun. And honestly, at the time, I really thought that manifesting money was the key to my happiness and our family's happiness and relationship and all that stuff together. That was going to fix everything. And I started on the whole manifestation and trying to better myself, and literally felt like I was starting at the beginning. Of course, 15, 20 odd years ago, I had started on this path with, some of the big names, and I was really into it, really enjoyed it. Then I met my husband and got married, and then it sort of fell to the wayside. The joys of life and being married and having children and things like that really sort of didn't allow any time, or whether I didn't have any interest or whatever, for me to continue down that path or follow any of those teachings, understandings, learnings, etc. So it wasn't until 2020 when I started. So I went on this journey, and it was like being a spiritual newbie, where I was at the stage of learning everything new again. And my progression was pretty fast, because I know many people who have been on that journey all their lives. They could have grown up like that, and they've just sort of expanded and grown on their own. Whereas for me, I was in that, okay, I need to learn everything, I need to do everything. And so my learning and the way that I started to understand about healing ourselves and working on our beliefs and our emotions and getting rid of things out of the body, etc., I accelerated all of that process to my highest possible potential, so that I could really just rapidly get to the finish line. That's what I wanted. So I thought if I did as much healing as I could, if I learned as much in the spiritual world as I could, I was going to be this millionaire with this amazing life, blah, blah, blah. Life was so good. So that's when my journey started. And then, trying to be the only one in the house working towards this whole new version of myself, and working on the healing and working on all those issues and stories and beliefs and all the fun stuff that comes with your healing process. It's difficult, it's a challenge, and I understand why some people just go, nah, fuck that, I'm done. Let me go back to my 9 to 5, my shitty life, and I don't want to deal with all this shit. I get it. Oh my goodness, I get it. Because, who wants to sign up for, hey, do you want to cry all the time, be really sad? Recall on memories that you bury deep down that you don't want to look at, deal with situations that you don't want to deal with. Who's going to sign up for that shit? No one. But I can only speak from my experience, and I can tell you mine was a journey. And even through just doing that healing, I'm pretty sure I cried every day solidly for 95% of the time on my spiritual journey. And I think if you talk to anyone else, they're going to tell you that it's not a, oh wow, oh my goodness, this is so fun. This is not skipping through the forest picking flowers. That is definitely not what it is. But anyway, during this journey, at the end of last year, my husband passed away unexpectedly. And that was the literal, I'm going to use the word turning point. I don't know. See, words don't always capture exactly what we want to say, but in using them, it gives you as a listener the understanding of what that word means and what I'm hoping I can describe it to mean in the context of whatever the story is. But it really was that pivotal moment that just not obvious. Obviously, it changed it all. Obviously, it changed everything, not just on a spiritual level, not just on a personal level, a environmental, my own environment around me level. It was an everything change. It was nothing that wasn't affected by that. And going through that process and now being past the 12 months, because when you go through grief, everyone has their own ways to deal with. And I've seen and heard many people talk about how it's a personal journey, and it's not the same as if you're in a group, because as someone who talks about healing emotions and talking about beliefs and changing them a lot, it's not sitting in a circle and all of us talking about how we were all sexually assaulted and how this affected us. Grief is more personal, and whilst you can still benefit from being in company of other people who have experienced that journey, it is something that's so unique. It's not something that can be spoken about in a way that is, oh, this is the way it is and that's it. And, I think I started reading one grief book a while ago, and at first I was like, oh my God, yes. And then, you sort of get into it and it's like, nope, I can't, because, and there's probably millions of books, there's probably lots of tools, there's lots of people who are there to really help people through grief. But for me, it was still is, it's not like it's over, but it's an individual process, and we can't label it in a way that is the same for everyone. And I know they used to have that whole process of, oh, these are the 5 stages of grief, or whatever it was. I don't even know what it was. And it was like going through the stages of like the AA program of, you feel this, then we do this, then we do this. No, that's not what grief is. And if anyone's ever going to tell you that it is going to be like that, yeah, they haven't done it then, because it's not like that at all. And luckily enough for me, I was able to actually find a program through my children's school, which taught grief as seasons, as going through different seasons. And it wasn't through going through, oh, we're sitting in this season for 3 months in this season. It was the way it sort of intertwined, and how in every moment we can go from this season to this season to this season to this season. And so that helped me a little bit, sort of give it a little bit of it's like giving it a hug kind of thing, but coming from where I was in that moment with my spirituality and understanding how emotions worked, and beginning to try and understand the concept of our existence and the way that we're all connected to everything, and trying to understand it all and doing both things at the same time is a journey I don't think many will get to experience. But I know obviously there will be people who do go along their spiritual journey with suffering some form of grief, and I know there's many who go through it, and it could be a parent or a grandparent or a friend or whatever. But for me, it was such a huge impact, because it wasn't an aging parent who was sick and had been diagnosed with a terminal illness, or it wasn't a grandparent who'd had a good life already and was at the end of their life. Like for me, it was, right in the middle of your life, if you look at it that way. It's like, well, I'm still here, I'm still trying to sort shit out so that I can get to a place where we can go, okay, cool, the kids are all grown up, we've got all this money, let's go do all the things that we actually want and we enjoy. And that's where we were before my husband's passing. And so it's like just being ripped out of the trajectory of life that you were on and being placed in a field of nothingness and go, okay, start again. And you're like, wait, what? I was just in the middle of that. It's a very powerful experience to go through when you got to go through that hand in hand with spiritual awakening. Now, people can talk about and tell you stories about their own spiritual awakening on its own and tell you how hard and how difficult and the things they experience along the way. But when you put that in hand with such a massive experience like grief, it's definitely a story that I was moving towards always talking about this story in some way, but on both sides, those two arms of those experiences, they've been pretty big and they've been pretty out there and wild and beyond probably some people's level of understanding and current conscious awareness. And what I mean by that, like, my spiritual path wasn't just, here's all my wounds, let's heal them. Now I'm connecting to the light. I meditate, everything's great. Look at me, I've manifested $1 million a week. That's not what it's been. For me, it's been all in. Give me all the information. Let me try everything. And then what happens with that, as you start to remove all those friggin' ideas that you hold in your mind that you think are true, and you really start to shine as your true self, there's a lot of weird shit that happens that most people will think you're a fucking weirdo. But that was part of my process, and that's what makes my journey unique. Tangle that up with the experience of grief and experiencing the connectedness and the unexplainable things that happen on the outside of this everyday normal existence that most people sort of live through every day. It's a story that cannot be told by many, and it would be a horrible shame to not be able to share that with other people, because the grief process, how it is now and how they are talking about it, how some people do try to speak about it, is like that image you see of, a piece of thread, a messy piece of thread going all over the place. That is definitely the process. Guess what the spirituality process, the awakening process is? It's the same thing. They're both these messy threads that can take you from down here to up there to over there to around here to back down here to all of these things at the same time, to let's go over here to let's go over there. It is definitely a process that is very similar in the way that traveled along, like the way that the journey is. The path is not straight and clear and easy. It is all over the place, and it is both never ending. Because if you go back to, what I was taught when I was a child was, follow this process, go to school, study this, blah, 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 get a job. There was a clean process. This is your path, this is what you did, and that's what many people did. Now, we all know, as we start becoming more aware and experiencing more things and doing more healing on ourselves and opening our awareness to new things, we are really learning that that's definitely not the case. There's no longer an A to B process. There's no longer start here, end here. You are always going to start somewhere, but where you end up is never going to be exactly or how you may have envisioned. Even if you are the king of manifestation, it doesn't matter what you think you want and what you think you need will be different to what you actually bring into your life or what you create or what you experience. And it's more about understanding the journey, because the process between the grief and the spirituality is definitely a journey, and it's a journey of understanding who you are. One of the biggest things that happens when you lose your partner in the middle of your life is you start questioning who you are, because you don't know anymore. When you've been with someone for a period of time, and it's not to say that, I'm going to do everything that you do and I'm going to become like you and we're going to be exactly the same. Because you spend so much time together, the things that you both enjoy become They could have been something that was something that someone else enjoyed and you tried it and enjoyed it and liked it, and now it's become something that you enjoy. Everything becomes intertwangled. They could be intertwined. You know what I mean. But if I had something that I was interested in and I introduced my husband to it and then he liked it and then it became our thing and vice versa, when one half of that equation disappears, it's like, well, do I still like that thing? Was that thing that we like doing something that we really did like doing? Or is it because we both liked doing it together? So there's a lot of these questions that arise when you start to go along this new journey of finding out who the hell are you anyway. My husband was like, he had a lot of hobbies, he had a lot of things he enjoyed. Me being the control freak that I was, trying to work, be a mother, be a good wife, blah, blah, blah. My hobbies or things that I thought or I used to enjoy doing probably fell to the wayside. I could use the excuse that I didn't have time because we're focusing on everyone else, whatever, yada, yada, yada. It doesn't matter. But I probably didn't know what I liked doing. And I know that was a discussion once that I actually had with my husband was, if you asked me what's your favourite hobby right now, I don't have any because my time was spent being a parent, cooking, cleaning, doing all those goddamn boring things. And then being that supportive partner and enjoying all the hobbies and things that my husband did, it's like, well, I don't know what I like anymore. We used to go four-wheel driving and camping and things like that. That was one of the few things that my husband enjoyed doing, and we all enjoyed it. Like, there's nothing better than, putting your feet in the sand, just sitting in a chair looking at the ocean, watching the sunset. Like, I don't think there's anyone who's going to be able to do that. Well, they might not like the sand part, but there's not many people who are going to say, oh no, this sucks, I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? Like, it is a really great experience. And, being able to, at the time, go forward driving and have someone who could do that. Not that it's like, oh my God, you're so amazing, you can forward drive. I mean, many people can do that. But it's just the fact that was like one of the things that we had. That was something that we always knew. The kids, since they were babies, we went camping and we went forward driving. So that was something we always did. So after my husband passed, it's like, okay, well, we have to continue doing that. But it wasn't until, months and months and months and months had passed. It's like, well, do we really enjoy it? Because I can tell you, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. If you've ever set up camp, and if you live in Queensland in the middle of summer, and you know how hot it is, and having lots of kids and trying to set up, it's not fun. There's a lot of swearing. There's a lot of, oh my God, I'm not doing this. There's a lot of that. And towards the end of our holidaying, while my husband was still alive, we did sort of move towards houses and units, etc. Because there is a level of, oh my God, this sucks so much. And that could have just been, where we were in the moment with our shadows, our beliefs, blah, 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 whatever. But a lot of those times setting up, it wasn't fun. Once the setup was done, it was great, but that setup was a struggle, and I know many people can attest to that. Ask anyone who's ever owned a camper trailer, because they're going to understand exactly what the pain is. However, it was only earlier in the year, it was like, well, do we still like that? Do we still need to do that? And I know in the beginning what happens is, and part of the grief process is, you try to hold on to those things that you used to do together, because you think if you hold on to those memories, those experiences that you had when you were together as a family, or you were together as a couple, or, those things that felt complete and love and happiness, in those moments, if you can go and relive them, then maybe you can relive that feeling you had so you weren't actually feeling the pain anymore. And that's only something that I've really noticed. But let me finish my topic on the forward driving and camping is that you try to go back to all those things you did as a couple, as a family, in order to try and relive that moment so you can get back to those moments that you did enjoy, because, let's be real, no one wants to feel the pain. Like, there's enough, man, this podcast could go on forever. This is why I'm writing a book. There's enough moments that you were going to recall the bad moments or relive the moment of when it all happened and circumstances around it, before it, after it, whatever. There's many places and times that you will do that, but going back into the past when you were in those happy moments is those ways of you trying to not feel the pain or the sadness. And the problem is that once we do that, is if we're still in our sad state and we're still upset and we're feeling emotional, and we try to recall on those memories, we end up tainting it with a feeling of sadness. Because if our body is currently feeling sadness and pain from losing someone, and then we go back and recall on a memory that was prior to all this happening, was something that was happy and made you feel good, your body's like, oh, okay, so we're recalling on this memory, but she's not feeling good. So that means I now need to associate this pain that she's feeling with that memory. And so what we end up doing is we start tainting these happy memories. So I'm really trying to make sure that if we do recall on a memory, that I'm in a place that is not sitting in that sadness or that grief, and so that I am giving that memory that happiness that it deserved and the happiness that it once was. And, I know people talk about that, recall the memories, remember the good times. But yeah, that's great advice, but don't do it when you're sad. And unfortunately, that's what we do. And then we attach the sadness to the happiness. And then every time we recall on that memory because we're sad, that just makes that memory sad. And then every time we go back to it, it's just sadder and sadder and sadder, which makes us sadder. And it's this continual process. So it's really important to make sure when we're trying to recall on those memories that we're doing it from a place where we are looking at it in some sort of unsad, that's not even a word, place, but you know what I mean. That's only a new awareness that I've only really sort of come to recently. But circling back to whether that is something that I enjoy doing is an interesting concept. If you gave me two choices, okay, go set up camp or go walk into a hotel with your suitcase. Now, Anna, who is very balanced and likes everything even and likes everything, could do either. Like, I don't care. I will set up camp or I will walk into a hotel. It doesn't worry me. So I get where us going back to trying to relive those moments makes sense, because we want to try and relive that memory. Going four-wheel driving, that was always my husband's thing. Yes, I loved it. We all loved it. We loved being in the car, four-wheel driving through the bush, etc. Do I want to be the driver of doing that? Sure, I could. Would I prefer to be a passenger? Yes. So it's, well, is it still something that we still desire to do? Like, yes, I'd love to go camping and four-wheel driving, but would you love to get an apartment by the beach and overlook the water and drive on a road to shops and stuff instead of cooking everything on a barbecue? Yes, I can do that. So do we need to keep creating the memories of what we were doing with our partner and as a family to keep him alive? No. We can move forward in that new knowing that we will still have those memories as long as we try to keep recalling on them with that level of fondness of the memory instead of tainting it with our sadness. We will still have those. But it's our turn now to create new memories of who we are now. And that's what the spiritual journey is us really finding out who we are on a deeper level and putting that in hand with the grief process. The grief process really sort of amplified the journey to finding who you are. Spiritual awakening. It is really a journey of finding who you are. Because if you look at it from all the different ways that people talk about it, they talk about it ascension, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to give you a solid description of what I think that is, because I think it's up to everyone to find out what their own goal is, what their end is, what their understandings and knowing is. But at the end of the day, we are an energetic vibrational frequency, full stop. We are connected to so many different things, well, literally everything on a energetic level. Everything, when you break it down, is broken down into the tiniest atoms, quarks, strings, however low you want to go. And in some way, all of it is all connected to everything. So when we look at it from the lowest or the highest, however you want to look at it, concept of how we exist, all the other stuff is just sort of the bits around it that encompass the whole idea of who we are, and everything else is an experience and a journey and a tool for us to get to that new level of awareness and understanding of us all at that lowest possible level of being that energetic vibrational frequency. And I don't know why I say lowest, you can say highest. I'm just saying lowest as it's something that you're breaking down. So if you can look at it from that concept, the rest of it doesn't seem as big and as scary and as hard as we thought. So my book and the way that it is going to describe the process between the grief and the spirituality journey is going to be very unique. Well, everything's unique. We all have our own stories. We all have our own experience. But this is going to describe how both of those processes sort of link together in our journey to find out who we are and find the joy and the happiness, the ultimate goal of our existence, and the understanding and point of it all, what it all means for me, and some of the key points that sort of happened along the way. I think putting the grief with the spiritual awakening has given the spiritual awakening process that up level to next level awareness, that up level to next level understanding. It's something that I've had to experience for whatever reason, for whatever viewpoint you have on why things happen. My goal is to share this story in order to help someone else. It could be one person, it could be a billion people, it doesn't matter. What I write will spark something in someone else. What I write will help someone else. What I write will allow someone else to reflect on my experience and see how it resonates with their experience, or give them a new understanding or a new idea or a new tool or a new thought in their own journey, whether it's their own grief journey or their own spiritual journey, their own awakening journey, their own whatever journey, it doesn't matter. But I know that this is my next step, and this is something that I have been called to do, and I'm really excited about it. But you are going to hear a lot more about it, and this podcast has been super, super long, so I do apologize. But please understand that we're never going to get it wrong. We're never going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. We're never going to make a mistake. We're never going to make the wrong choice. We're always going to be doing exactly what we need to in each and every moment. So go keep doing you, and Just find that joy in your days, in your everydays, find that joy. So thanks for listening, and don't forget to tune in next week for some other really long and wild conversation.